Hey, everybody. It's Ethan here. Welcome to the Hello Road podcast. How's everybody doing? How are you doing, Paul?
I'm doing good.
That's good. That's good. So last episode, we did our first ever Q&A, and we got so many questions that we need to do a second Q&A episode. So that's what this one is.
Yep.
So many great questions. And so we've been drinking a little bit, so this might go a little bit different than the first one.
I'm onto the tequila now.
Okay, you're onto the tequila. I just have to open my Oh, it's foaming. Oh no. Okay. Oh. That's what happened last time. Okay.
Okay.
The Sam Adams New England IPA. I'm trying that one now, and we'll see how this podcast goes.
There we go.
Okay. So let's just dive right into these questions because we have quite a few more to go through. So
dive into the deep end.
Yeah, I think there's some really good ones in here, just like there were for the first Q&A. So
yeah, all the questions were great that were submitted.
I know, they're great. So the first one is from Lewis Storms on Instagram. His question is, what was your poster car, like your actual poster car while growing up? And for me, it was pretty easy. I remember this vividly. I had, I think it was an ad from like Car and Driver or something I just pulled out. It was like a spread ad that like folded out of the magazine. And it was the 1990 Nissan 300ZX. So that was the first year of the Z32 platform.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember loving the way that car looks. I remember liking their Nissan's ads at the time. Very clean. You know, I remember talking about this before. I was always into like marketing, car marketing, that kind of thing, even at an early age. So I remember just really liking the ads for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
They had the big kind of like typewriter Z in the ad, zoomed in really close. I wish I still had this ad, but it was a pretty cool looking ad. And I just remember thinking that platform, the Z32 platform, was a really big leap forward in design. And even today, I still think it looks great.
And
it doesn't really look that dated to me.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that car came out. Oh, geez, it's been 30 years, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It's been 30 years. That's a 30-year-old car. It was probably designed 2 years prior to that. So 32, almost 40 damn years ago.
I know.
But yeah, it still looks great.
It looks awesome. And that's one of those vehicles that just recently I've been thinking about, oh, yeah, I did used to have that car on my wall, and I did love that vehicle, and I still have never owned one. So that's on my list now, unfortunately. And
it's
then
not a bad car to have on your list.
Yes, exactly. And then other than that one, you know, I probably had like a Countach or whatever, but that wasn't one that I really cared about. It was just kind of one of those ones that like, it's sort of when you were a teen in the early 90s that you just get handed a Countach poster.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a standard issue.
Yeah, standard issue.
So I think the other ones that I had, it might have been from like a Ford catalog or something, but I was just really into the Ford products, a couple of the Ford products from the late 80s, early 90s. I think I had a picture of the 89 Thunderbird SC. So that was one of those vehicles that I just liked how it looked. I liked the fact that it was a little bit different. And my mom was really into Thunderbirds. I guess, you know, you mentioned this before that your family had some Thunderbirds too. My mom had a 87, I think it was an 87, and also an 89 or 90 or something. But yeah, I loved the SC, and I wished that my mom would have bought the SC, but you know, she didn't care about that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that was the two that I remember kind of most vividly from my bedroom wall was the 300ZX and the Thunderbird SC. Nice. What about you?
Well, you know, the one that I can remember the most is something that I actually made myself because we couldn't find a picture or a poster, and I would kind of redraw it every couple years because I think the first one was from when I was maybe 6 years old.
Okay.
But I was obsessed with Herbie and Volkswagen, so I would always we could never find like a poster or anything. You know, this is 1980s. You couldn't buy one on Amazon.
Yeah. You had to go to Spencer Gifts, and they just didn't happen to have.
They just didn't happen
Herbie
to have the Love Bug
Yeah.
poster. So I had like a hand drawn Volkswagen. I don't know where it went. I think it probably got thrown away. But I would redraw it every few years. But that was up until I want to say 90, 91. Whenever the first availability of like the Dodge Viper in its production form came out, like the photos came out, and I had at first the newspaper article, and I had cut out the picture from the debut of it or whatever, and I had that up. It wasn't really a poster, but I had a picture of the Viper. But then it was a couple, I don't know, it was sometime later. Where I got it, I don't know. I ended up getting my hands on a poster of one.
Okay.
And but I remember that was the blue with the white, the GTS when it came out, because I was obsessed with that car. And when the GTS came out, I was even more obsessed with it. I was like, oh my God, I love this car. It's so cool. And you know, still to this day, I'm not gonna kick a first generation Viper GTS out of bed or anything like that. I really, really like that car.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was kind of like the first like real car poster I had up, besides my ghetto drawn Herbies,
okay,
which weren't very good. I mean, the only distinguishable thing there was like the 53.
Yeah, exactly.
Then, like,
okay, I guess
the
that's
red, white, and blue stripe, and I think it looks like a Volkswagen. But my artistic ability. But yeah, that was kind of my first car poster.
Okay,
real one was Viper GTS.
Yep. All right. It's funny thinking about like car. I used to draw cars. I was really not very good at it, but I remember the first few cars that I used to draw were. I owned, well, my mom owned it, and then I got it after my sister kind of crashed it a little bit, but it was a 1978 Chevrolet Malibu, which is G-body. And it was it was a car that had some options that were not very common. So it had a manual transmission 4-speed. It had the rally gauges, so it had a tachometer. It didn't have the basic kind of malaise like gauges. It had bucket seats, white vinyl. It had like a center console, which is also kind of not very common for Malibus. Usually you get the bench seat. And then there was a few other options that were pretty cool that you just didn't see very often. It had sport mirrors, it had like pinstripes and a bunch of stuff. It was just a really cool looking car. The first, when I was learning how to kind of try to draw cars, I would just always draw that one. So it's kind of like you would always drawing Herbie. I would just always draw a 78 Malibu 2-door. And even to this day, I'm not good at drawing cars. Anytime I draw a car, I'm just kind of like default, I'll just draw that 78 Malibu because I practiced that one so much. So when I was drawing some chalk drawings for my daughter outside the other day, and I was like, well, I'll draw a car for you. And it just, okay, 78 Malibu, that's all I know how to draw. Yeah, so I did not have that one on my wall. I probably did have it on my wall on the crappy drawings that I have. So I could count that one too.
There you go.
So let's see. 87_Velvet is a question for me specifically. Would you sell me the Stanza wagon? And by sell, I mean give it to me for free. Probably. I don't really have much more to say than that. Other than that car is just sitting in my yard, not really doing a whole lot. I actually did get it to run the other day.
Yeah, you did. I saw that.
Yes, I didn't have a chance to film anything, but it did. I did get it to run. Just kind of found some wires in the electrical system on that car is all messed up, but I found a few things that were disconnected. So I did get it to start. As soon as I stepped on the gas a little bit harder, it died. So I couldn't get it started again. So yeah, I'll probably give you this car for free. Yeah. Yif_wagon. What are your opinions on the Geo Storm Wagonback? Do you have any opinions on the Geo Storm Wagonback, Paul?
You don't see a whole ton of them around here anymore.
No.
And when you do see them, I want to say there was somebody that I went to high school with that had one, and I want to say it was purple. And I think that was like one
very
of the factory
90s color.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it came
or teal. Teal another one.
It was purple or teal. Like those are the two, and I think yellow.
Yep.
And I remember that was the one thing that stood out about those cars.
There's a maroon one too. Yeah.
They had very unique colors on them. I don't think I'm sure there was a white and I'm sure there was a black, but I remember the ones I saw were very, colorful, which was nice. Which was, even back then, it was cool to see that. And even though when you look back at the 90s, like everything's, you're wearing teal colored glasses.
Yeah. Just goes with the territory. Yeah.
It does. They're cool cars. They're very unique. You don't see a whole ton of them. And very similar to the Corsica 5-door. It's if you can find one and you want to rock it, then rock it. Yep.
I remember my friend Brian had one back when I was like 19 maybe. And we would drive it on the back roads of Western Massachusetts. And I remember there was one time where a bunch of us just drove to like a little state park and parked it in the state park. And I think we were probably all smoking weed. And I was like, why did we go to a state park to smoke weed? We could have just done this like somewhere else. And then a park ranger stops and comes up behind us, and we're like, oh no, what are we doing? I mean, it was in the middle of nowhere. This was like Ashfield, Massachusetts, which you probably don't, any people that even live in Massachusetts probably don't even know where that is. So we were out there at this little park, and then this ranger comes behind us and comes over with his flashlight. We're all just like stupid kids, and comes up to the door, and he probably knows what we're doing. And he said, "You mind if I search the car real quick?" And our driver Brian, he's probably a little bit stoned, and he said, "Yeah, no, I actually don't want you to do that." It wasn't a cop; it was just a park ranger. I think he was just trying to scare us or whatever. And it was the '90s, so it probably wasn't. They didn't really care that much. So we just kind of said, no, we're just leaving." So then we took off. So that's my memory of the Storm Wagonback, was that story of
evading the park ranger.
Evading the park ranger in the middle of Massachusetts. But it was a teal. It was a teal Storm.
Nice.
And I knew somebody else that had a yellow hatchback Storm, not the Wagonback, but the wagon was way cooler, way more usable space. The hatchback was completely useless back seat. I remember sitting in the back, just my head on the glass. Yeah, tiny. Mm-hmm. The other colors that I remember was kind of like a light blue. Somebody that I knew had a Storm GSI that was light blue. It was just really cool.
There was that. It was like a metallic
blue. Yep.
Like azure blue or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. But like you said, just super cool colors that manufacturers are just too afraid to do now. Yeah. I think, and most cars now are black, white, gray, silver, beige. Occasionally, like I see a lot of like red Priuses. We have a red Prius, but I think there's a few colors that kind of like make a pop here and there, kind of like a maroon or occasionally a blue.
That aqua color on the Prius, I really like.
Yeah.
Not that we're going to turn this into a Prius conversation.
No, exactly. We don't want to do that.
But that's the other thing too. Like when these questions making me think about Geo, and I think about like Saturn and these other like ill-fated attempts of, well, I mean, I guess they weren't ill-fated at the time, but you look back at it like, man, GM really took a lot of chances with stuff by making all these different variants of, the cars, and the same thing with Saturn too. They had like the same car, but it was available in, 4 or 5 different versions, the wagon, the sedan, the coupe, the whatever the other thing they had was, and the same goes for like Geo. It was like that too. And even though there were a lot of them were like imported from, who made them? Oh my gosh.
Oh, Isuzu.
The
Storms? Yeah, the Storms. Yeah, they're Isuzu.
Storm, like those sort of things. So cool. You won't see that anymore. And so, I'm a fan.
I feel like an idiot because there was a Storm GSI for sale in Oregon. Mm-hmm. The guy was asking like $1,500. And there was nothing wrong with it other than he just didn't have a space for it or something. And it sat there. I looked at it on Craigslist. I just kept it open in a tab for about a month, and then eventually it was gone. And I feel like an idiot for not buying it because it was in pretty nice shape. Mm-hmm. And that's probably one of the only times I would have to have purchased that car. So yeah, I actually have not seen a Storm Wagonback since that time at that, in the back roads of Western Massachusetts at that park. That's probably the last time I saw one.
Since the high-speed chase.
Yeah, exactly. Those are just gone. I don't know where those all went. Crushered. They went to the crusher.
Damn you, what was it? Cash for clunkers. Say that 5 times fast.
Oh yeah.
That's where a lot of these cars I think went.
Do you think even the small like fuel efficient cars?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Really?
People use it as an excuse. Oh yeah, get rid of this thing. Oh, you're gonna give me $5,000 for this car that's worth $500 or whatever the crazy thing was that they were giving to people to bring their old cars in. Yeah. I think that's what lost a lot of cars.
Yeah. It's a terrible, I mean, in general, it's, I think the whole idea is try to spur the economy and all that. But for sure, it got rid of a lot of vehicles that probably could have, been saved and kept driving for a very long time. But we need a whole episode on cash for clunkers. I think that would be another good one we should talk about. I need to learn a little bit more about that. I just remember kind of thinking about all the Explorers. It seemed like a lot of Explorers were victims of cash for clunkers.
I think so.
Anyway,
future episode foreshadowing. Cash for clunkers.
That actually is a good segue from Explorer to the next question from Troy Miner 7. Do you think SUVs will become lame like minivans did and then become cool in 25 years?
That's a good question.
So I have a strong opinion on this. Well, not strong, but I do feel like SUVs are already lame because most soccer moms and soccer dads have already switched to SUVs. So minivans aren't even really used for that anymore. I mean, occasion, but I think if you're a parent, I think most people are just looking for SUVs. That's kind of what the dealers are pushing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what those probably are the most profitable vehicles for manufacturers to try to push on people, because they can charge a little bit more for them than a passenger car, even though maybe the content isn't that different. I sort of feel like right now minivans are in a transition period. So I feel like if you're driving a minivan now, like today, it's kind of like if you were wearing a 1980s members only jacket in the early 2000s. So most people thought you were just weird by still wearing this members only jacket in the early 2000s. But in reality, you were a trendsetter, because nowadays, 15, 20 years later, 80s throwback music, it's all the rage, and a members only jacket fits in perfectly fine at Radwood. So I feel like the fact that most everybody switched over to SUVs has made minivans cool again, because nobody's buying them. And it's just one of those things where a minivan is so much more useful and so much more comfortable than any SUV. Maybe except for, if you're trying to find something that will do well off-road. But,
right.
Most 3-row SUVs, it's a pain in the ass to get in the back, and it's not very comfortable, but the back row of a van is totally fine.
Right.
So yeah, I think minivans, I think SUVs are already lame. What do you think?
So yeah, it's an interesting thing. There's some SUVs out there that are kind of like, I don't want to call them timeless, but they're going to be there. Like, when I think of SUV, I think of things like the Toyota Land Cruiser. Like,
yeah,
I'd love to own one. Lexus
for sure.
GX470, Toyota 4Runner. They're all off-road capable, but they're just good SUVs. There's a big thing going on with Mitsubishi Monteros right now. There's a big old resurgence of people getting those things because at least they were dirt cheap.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I have in my Facebook Marketplace saved listings, I've got 2 GX470s and a Montero. And the Montero is like $4,000, and it looks awesome.
Yeah,
anyway,
they're cool. But I'm thinking in the future, things such as like the CUVs out there are going to become the things, the trend-setting things, like showing up to whatever future car show. And you're in a low mileage 2013 Honda CRV. Oh man, sure. It's kind of that hipster-esque, like, how do you even want to put this? It's just there to be, oh man, it was so lame, but it's so cool now that I'm driving this 2013 CRV. It's kind of, I think it's going to come full circle, kind of like the same way it is, the minivan resurgence that's happened with the Previa Love, which, sure, I'm totally on board with, because I think it's an awesome van. But at the same time, it's just like, you would have asked me that 10 years ago, I would have actually, I probably would have said, yeah, that's cool. But like things like seeing low mileage, like Ford Aerostars, like things that I was kind of shuttled around to and from, like school and stuff with friends. It's just like, but now people are all into them. So
yeah, and I think part of it might be like you talk about a CRV from today. 20, 30 years from now, that might just be one of those cars that it was a utility. It wasn't an enthusiast vehicle, so most of them probably would have been crushed by then. Mm-hmm. It's just sort of it's the Corolla of SUVs. A Civic of SUVs is probably a better way to put it, but it's definitely one of those cars. It's utility isn't in the actual name. So why would you really care about it too much? So I totally agree with you that, at whatever car show is going to be happening 20, 30 years from now, there might be just a handful of these left, because nobody cared about them once they got rid of them. They just got sent to the junker. So I could see those making a resurgence, in 25 years for sure.
And to be honest, you think about it, like the car of today, everything's fairly reliable.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have, I'm thinking of something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but like the Ford Aerostars had something that always would happen to the engines, and that's why you never see them anymore, because everything blew up, and it was like, we don't use this anymore. So that's the sort of thing. Like, there might be more of them out there, but it's definitely going to be one of those like niche things for sure. Like
sure,
the weirdos driving around in the RAV4s and the CRVs, like from like somewhat present day. Like, yeah, check this thing out. So yeah, I think it's gonna go full circle.
Okay. Well, speaking of the future, Eric Richter on Facebook, which is a guy that I used to race Spec Miata with for many years, super cool guy. He has a question for us. Leap ahead 30 years. So kind of around the same time we're talking about all these CRVs that people are going to be driving around in and thinking that they're so cool. What do you think the average new cars of the future will be like? So I was thinking that I don't think it's going to be 100% electric cars. I was thinking I'll throw out 75% electric. I still think there's going to be, we're so ingrained in the whole fossil fuels industry. I don't think that it's going to go away that fast. Even though there's a lot of politicians that want it to go away sooner than that. I think in 30 years, cars will still not be self-driving. Tesla's still going to be telling people that their cars self-drive, but they don't. I would say that Tesla goes out of business in 2022. I would guess that maybe Hyundai is the largest automaker in 30 years. Just a random guess. I would also think that maybe a lot of cars are rented or shared. Maybe the whole shared economy thing really takes off, where maybe General Motors, those big car companies get more into letting people borrow vehicles versus people actually owning them. And then I had this other idea where I think that there's still going to be car enthusiasts. The car enthusiasts are never going to go away. And that I think there's a lot of question as to, okay, well, if cars are moving to electric, how can an enthusiast like get into an electric car? So I was thinking that there's probably still going to be a small handful of enthusiasts that have created demand for cars with like, quote, retro features. So one of the ideas I had was like, maybe in 30 years, there'll be like on a electric car, there'll be like a manual transmission emulation mode. So think about like running an Atari game on your brand new MacBook.
Right.
So it's like it's totally your MacBook is totally capable of doing things that are way beyond all of these Atari games. But the Atari games are cool. People like playing those simple little games, and it's fun. It's a fun throwback, and there's something special about playing those really simple Atari games. So I think that they'll probably come up with some features for enthusiasts that make cars essentially worse, because you have this electric motor that is instant torque, but people will still want to have a car where there's a little bit more manual control over it. It makes it a little bit more engaging, makes it more fun, and I think there's probably going to be things like that are introduced on some sporty vehicles that kind of make it just not. Essentially it just makes the car worse, but it makes it more engaging to drive on a back road.
Right.
So yeah. So I think that's not going to be a big thing. I think that's going to be super, super, super small. But given the fact that I really do believe that a lot of the industry is moving towards electric, and I think it'll be mostly electric by then, people are going to be bored.
Yeah.
With how good electric cars are and how perfect they are.
Right.
So, but I still don't think they're going to be self-driving. Not even in 30 years. Yeah. If they are, it's still going to be shit. It's going to be like terrible self-driving cars.
Interesting. Well, my take on it is slightly similar, but a little different. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to have I'm going to call it 30 years. So 15 years from now is going to be like it's 2020. So we're going to call it like the great epiphany of like 2035. And that's going to be when so many automakers and everybody there's people are buying electric cars like crazy because that's kind of what's available.
Yeah.
But the infrastructure is not going to be able to support all of these cars sitting there gulping down power every night. And here in Southern California, at least, I mean, when it gets really hot, we can get those rolling blackouts or the brownouts, they call them.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a big problem. And that the solution to that's going to be either, improve the infrastructure, but, without dabbling into politics too much, that's just going to take, hundreds of years to get fixed and resolved with all the fighting that goes on. So I think in actuality, we might actually see more alternative fuels that would be more like maybe like a hydrogen type of thing. I know Honda's doing that already with their Clarity vehicle. And so I think there's going to be kind of a good mix of the hydrogen power, electric power, and then still going to have internal combustion out there. And the majority of the internal combustion may be hybrid or even plug-in hybrid. But I think that's going to kind of be the dominant thing on the road. In speaking to like the enthusiasts, I think that car companies, specifically some of the ones, not that they all don't have heritage, but some of the more deeply rooted heritage companies like maybe Ford and GM, they're going to offer a performance model for those that still enjoy driving. For our generation, that at that time in 30 years, if we wanted to buy the 2040 Corvette or whatever it's going to be, that we could buy it and still enjoy it. Obviously not with a manual transmission like the C8, but that's a different story. But I think that there would be something like that. I do like your idea of the emulation as a part-time video game nerd myself. I think that's pretty cool. It can be done pretty well, I think, depending how it's handled. I think it would be pretty cool. But honestly, I think that I hope that there would be some sort of an enthusiast type model out there, and in varying degrees, not just super uber expensive ones, but like something that's obtainable by like even like a young car enthusiast of the day. I think that would be there. But and another thing I do agree with you on is the whole rideshare aspect of it. I think that's going to be big. I was in Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, yesterday for a friend's birthday. We were in and around Echo Park, and out here where I live, there's none of those electric scooters. But oh my gosh, you're out there, and there's just the electric scooters everywhere.
Tons of them.
Tons of them. That same sort of thing's going to happen to some sort of mobile transportation that's not a scooter that you can fall off of.
It'd be kind of interesting if like just all of these cars just end up on sidewalks and in ditches and like like the scooters are
thrown in lakes. I think something like that's going to come about. There might be some upstart company out there right now that's working on something that's like maybe a single seater that you can just hop in to zip over to wherever you need to go.
Sure.
There's companies out there like that now, but I think there's going to be one that's going to kind of go and take over. And
like Zipcar is one of those ones that's been around for quite a while now, but it's certainly not as prevalent as the Lime scooters are in Venice or Santa Monica.
It's not. That's a good one.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks, Eric. So the next one is from Matthew Larson, and Matthew Larson is a gentleman that I went to school with when I think we met in kindergarten.
Oh.
And we were in a band together for a long time. And we've known each other for ages. I went on a tour with him a couple of years ago. His question is, if you were to buy a manual transmission car in 2019 under $30,000, what would you choose?
I don't really need to think about it. I own one.
Yes. You own what you want. Yeah. You made this exact purchase. So
I would buy a Fit. That's a great car.
Yeah.
The same can be said at
Honda Fit.
The Civic Sport Touring.
Sure.
That's got the 1.5 turbo in it. I'm sure that's a bit more fun to drive if that's what you want. But yeah, that's kind of the way I would go for under 30. For sure. There's a good amount of choices, but if I had to put my money on it, which I kind of did, it would be the Fit. Hands down.
That's a good question.
I love my Fit.
Good answer. Yep, good answer. I would go with a car that is always the answer, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I would go with a Miata, under 30 for sure. I've actually never driven the ND, but it doesn't matter because everybody says it's great. And if you have a need for some spirited backroad driving, I can't think of anything that would be more fun than that.
Right? Can you get them for under 30? I think they're a little. I think they might be over.
Are they now?
I don't know. I could be completely wrong, and I most likely am. But if I'm not mistaken, they're kind of expensive initial purchase price. They're convertibles will depreciate faster than anything.
Yes,
unless it's an S2000 that's appreciating right now. But it typically
it is under 30, but it can definitely creep up well above that. So I'm looking here. It's from like 26ish to 35.
It counts. We're fine.
Yeah, so you can get more of a base model for under 30. But Miatas, generally are not, I mean, it's not the everything car, obviously, only 2 seats. So if I were to get a Miata, I'd probably end up getting a used one because, like you said, depreciation is a little bit faster on those cars. The other one I was thinking of would be the Hyundai Veloster N. So you're looking for something sporty. So it's a weird looking car. You kind of have to get past that. Not as weird as looking as like the Civic Type R, which I hate. I love the way it drives, but I hate the way it looks. And I think a lot of people share that opinion, except for the people that comment on my Civic Type R video. They all say it looks beautiful and give me a thumbs down. But anyway, I haven't driven one. I can't wait to drive one. I really want to try to find one of those to drive. So that one, I think in a lot of ways, it's similar kind of formula as the Civic Type R, maybe a little bit slower. Yeah. But from what I've read, the tech inside is a little bit cooler in terms of like being able to adjust things. The Type R doesn't give you much adjustment. So you have like 3 modes, but there's no individual, if you want to like get into the details of like adjusting specific things within each of those modes, the Type R does not give you that. And you have to like go into the menu while you're stopped to turn off rev matching. There's a few little things like that are kind of annoying that the Veloster N kind of makes that more of a fun experience.
Okay.
So that, if you're looking for a fun car under 30, that would probably be one of the, like I said, I haven't driven it, but I think it would be one of the first ones I'd want to drive.
If I can interject something,
for sure.
That blue color, that N blue color is probably my favorite new car color that's on the market right now. And there's a lot of cool colors, but I love that color. It's that's
very nice. I know what you're talking about.
It's so nice.
I guess honorable mention, Toyota Corolla hatchback. Again, I've seen nothing but positive feedback about the driving characteristics and the usability of that car. Just the fact that it looks pretty nice,
Yeah.
It's not a bad looking car.
Yeah. I mean, if we're talking enthusiast stuff, I got to throw it out there to that Chevy Sonic Turbo.
Oh yeah. The Sonic Turbo.
That it would have definitely been a contender, had I really thought through that and not found such a sweet deal on the Fit that I got that I had to go buy it right then. So I would have probably maybe driven one to see, because it's kind of a unique, weird car. It's right up my alley. But yeah, that's kind of not really as enthusiast. I mean, not that the Fit's an enthusiast car, but definitely, if we're talking like Veloster N, the Sonic Turbo is kind of like the forgotten, off to the side. Nobody knows about it.
Yes. Yep. So, and then I had a few that I would not want to buy. This is a good car, but I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't buy a new one. So the Toyota 86, I feel like that's one of those cars. Yes, it's manual transmission. You can get under 30, but just buy a used one at this point.
Oh yeah.
It's just it's long in the tooth and, it needs an update. I'd say I'd buy a used one. I just looked at a couple other ones that are still available with the manual, the Volkswagen Jetta GLI, which I like the idea of that car. And it's funny because I feel like a lot of people like how that looks, but to me, the front end is kind of frumpy and bloated, and it sort of reminds me of a modern take. The first time I saw the new Jetta, I immediately thought it's like a modern take on the Mercury Sable. Like there's something about the front of this car. It's too bloated in the front. The grill comes down too low, but I don't know. I feel like I'm the only one that's mentioned this. I see a lot of people say how handsome it looks, but it's not really a great looking car in my opinion. But I don't know.
They're not well versed in Mercury Sable, I think.
I mean, and I don't want to put down the Mercury Sable. I mean, there's something really nice about that light bar front end on those earlier ones, but yeah, I don't like the.
I see it now that you bring it up. I really do.
Yeah, look at the Jetta GLI, or just the new Jetta, and look at that front and kind of tell me that it doesn't look a little frumpy.
I'm gonna have to make a meme about this later, I think.
Okay. And then the last one I had that I wouldn't buy, and I don't think anybody should buy a new one of these, is the Nissan 370Z, which is probably still a very good car. Actually, probably kind of competitive in terms of how it handles and horsepower and all that, but just buy one that's 10 years old because it'll be the same car.
Right.
So yeah, that's another one that's still offered in a manual. And I think the other thing we should remember is that 10 years ago that this was, I just learned this today when I was trying to refresh my memory on the 370Z, is that it was either the first car or one of the first cars to introduce auto rev matching. So that, that we have Nissan to thank for that. And this is a super, super old platform that that it exists in. But yeah, those are the ones I was thinking of. So I guess, I don't know if I would immediately go for the Miata. I think I probably should have put Veloster N first, just because it's a little bit more useful.
A little more usable. Yeah. Yep. That's got that cool third door.
Yep.
Weird third door, but I like it.
Yep. So then the Blue XB, he's on Instagram and he has a Scion XB, Blue Scion XB like I do. His is the newer generation.
Okay.
His question is, what is the worst car buying experience you've had? Do you have an answer for this one?
And it comes down between two different things. How I bought the Charade was pretty stressful, which was
really?
Silly. Yes.
Okay.
I was working at CarMax at the time, and one of the perks of working there was that you could buy cars from the auction. Yeah. And I've touched on this before, but basically the long short of it was you can buy the cars from auction as long as you get the managers to sign off on it, which wasn't a huge issue, but it had to pass.
Like, okay, no problem. You can have it for free.
Go buy your $600 car. But it had to pass a safety inspection, which we don't have like mandatory safety inspections in the state of California, like some other states do. But so it had to do that, which it passed, but then it had to do a smog check. And and that turned into quite a thing. It was pretty stressful. There was some, because this went on for about a week after it showed up on the wholesale lot to when I actually got to take it home, with me taking it to like a smog shop and them telling me, it wasn't going to pass because the sticker on the hood was wrong. It turned into a big old mess. But what it ended up happening was I leveraged some of my previous experience with a little Vespa scooter that I had owned for a while, which was a ton of fun and a whole nother story in itself. But I had to bring that little scooter back from DMV registration hell, basically. And I learned about a little thing called a DMV Statement of Facts. And it's basically a blank sheet of paper that says DMV at the top, Statement of Facts. And you can write a spiel on it about something. So when CarMax wasn't going to sell me the Charade because it wouldn't pass smog, I said, well, wait a minute. Can I use a DMV Statement of Facts to say I am buying this car without a smog check from you, without passing smog certification, with the intention that I will get the car to pass smog before its registration expires it was October. And this is in June we're talking here. Yeah. And the people that were in the business office had no idea about this thing, but they looked it all up and they said, yeah, we can do it. And then I slid my ATM card and bought my Charade. So yeah, that was pretty stressful though. There was some hit or miss times because I had actually taken it to the smog shop a few times trying to get it to pass. But that's it was some other thing. It did eventually pass. Okay. But yeah, that was pretty stressful, pretty hairy at times because I had waited so long for one of those things to show up in the wholesale lot, and it finally did. And the thought of losing it, it was not cool.
Sure. Cool. Well, yeah, especially if you're interested in that kind of vehicle, it's not every day that you're going to have one of those traded into CarMax. I mean, I don't know how many. You probably know this figure, but like how many Daihatsus have actually even been traded to CarMax? Was it one?
It was funny.
Have there been others?
Because of the position I was in there, I actually had kind of like a big access to like almost company-wide searching for wholesale cars. Okay. And so I would search, and there was very few, and it was like years in between them. But coincidentally, like maybe a month or two after I got the Charade, another one showed up.
And, a better one.
Well, it was a sedan, but it was an automatic, and it had the 4-cylinder in it, and it was really banged up. So I passed on that one, even though I thought about it. Yep. Yeah. What about you?
Well, I've talked about this before, I think, on the podcast. I can't remember because sometimes I drink when we're doing the podcast, so I can't remember how much I've talked about this. But it was my Scirocco, so you know this story, and I probably mentioned this in some capacity. But yeah, so the 1987 Scirocco that I bought from that shady dealer, I think I even remember the name of it, Rainbow Motors. Yeah, I passed it many times.
So nice.
Sounds so nice. And it was a terrible, shady dealer that I purchased it from. And, I passed it many, many times and finally saved up the money and went and purchased this car. And then so I guess the car buying experience wasn't that bad. So maybe this is a bad example because I'm just thinking about everything else that went along with this car that was awful. But, the timing belt broke within hours of me owning it. So that was bad because it meant valves in the motor. So I would say that's maybe actually not the worst car buying experience. It's just the worst car experience. So
yeah.
it's maybe I really haven't had. I mean, I did end up taking the guy to small claims court. So the whole process of the relating to the sale was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to think if there's another one. I remember buying a 1999 Nissan Maxima, and that one wasn't terrible until after I left the dealer. I bought it from a dealer, and then I realized afterwards I got screwed. Ended up paying for a bunch of crap that I shouldn't have bought. And I was just a dumb kid. And it sucked because it was one of those dealers that was recommended by a friend, and they knew the owner, and I still got screwed because I was just a stupid kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned a lot from that experience, to really look over, the paperwork and all that and make sure. Since then I've gotten a lot better, but back when I was a dumb kid, I made a couple of mistakes like that. So yeah, I guess I never really had anything that was just completely terrible other than just the whole experience of owning that 87 Scirocco 16 valve. I have a picture of it right here in front of my desk. I should hang it up on the wall just to remind myself how much of an idiot I was.
Interesting. Yep. Yeah. I thought about for just a quick moment talking about my car buying experience when I bought my Fiesta ST, because, at that point in my life, my wife and I had already bought a good number of new cars from the dealership. And this was a perfect example of me just being absolutely smitten with something and just sure, okay, sign,
yep,
sign, just do it, and walking out and seeing my Mazda 2 that was modified,
sure,
with all of its stuff that was done to it parked right next to it, and transferring all my crap out of it, and I'm just this
kind of
sad.
It's
okay, it's got a turbo on it and it goes fast.
Sure, yeah, exactly.
That kind of that was another probably the worst experience with buying a car like that. Besides,
it's just sort of emotionally tough.
I wouldn't say it was emotionally tough. Not as bad. If you want to talk emotionally tough, I can get into the experience of buying my Mazda 2 when I traded my Mini in for it, and that was, I still get chilled down my spine thinking about driving away from my Mini as the rain fell in the nighttime in my new Mazda 2. Yeah, it was bad. The rain came from my eyes, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, Derek.TJ_official, he asks, what do you think of the old Mark 1 or Mark 2 Volkswagens? Any interesting opinions or stories you could share? I don't have anything because I'm not really well versed in Volkswagens.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you are, other than my Scirocco, the Mark 2 Scirocco 16 valve. And I could just say that was by far the worst vehicle I ever owned, just in terms of reliability and durability and things that broke and things that, got me stranded and, just having to sue the person I bought. It's so many things that were revolved around that car.
Right.
That, it was only maybe a year of my life, but still, it just soured me on Volkswagens forever.
Yeah. The only thing that really comes to my mind with this is I had I don't want to call him a friend, maybe an acquaintance who had one back in the days when I was driving the canyons at night like an idiot, with all my idiot friends. And he had that thing set up so nice, and he was fast in that thing. I think it even had the stock motor in it, but just the suspension he had set up on it. I remember it being really awesome. So that's it. That was a Jetta. And then I've kind of always wanted a Mark 1. The TV show Wheeler Dealers, if you've ever gotten a chance to watch that, it's a great show. One of the early episodes, they got a Mark 1 GTI. And I remember just watching them kind of restore it, and then they go through and sell it. And I was like, it's such a kick-ass little car. The European one was a lot different. We didn't get them until 83, and they had block headlights. They didn't have the cute round headlights and stuff. So it was I thought about it. I was like, man, that'd be so much fun to have. And then I started looking up all the stuff, and it was there's kind of a lot to it. And to make the switch over to the circle headlights, you got to cut and weld and do all sorts of silly things. So yeah.
Okay. When I think of Mark 1 Volkswagens, I immediately think of Bad Rabbit Habit on Instagram, John, who made an appearance in our Las Vegas Radwood video. And he's got this insane Mark 1 Rabbit that is scary fast. I still haven't driven it yet. John, if you're listening, I really want to drive your Rabbit. It's a super cool car. I've seen it at quite a few Radwoods. Mm-hmm. He recently put a Heck blend in on the back, which
looks good.
You know what that is now, the basically how do you describe a heck blend? It's just like a connection of their two piece of plastic that connects your two taillights, essentially.
A connection of two taillights.
Yes, exactly.
Heck blending.
Yes.
It looks really good. I really like the way it looks.
Good. It's a very, very cool car. When I did the Driving While Awesome Coastal Range Rally, he was driving this car, and his motor was having some issues at that point. He was burning a lot of oil, and it was still like crazy fast. I mean, super light car, a lot of horsepower that he put into this thing. But yeah, we're not the Volkswagen specialists here.
No.
John is definitely that. So
yes, he is.
Follow him on Instagram.
Bad rabbit habit.
Yes. So, and then Taco_Billionaire, they are asking, I think it's time to retire the 4Runner that I've had for a decade. How do I get over it? That's a good question. I guess I don't really know what's wrong with it. So it's a little bit hard to tell. Like, is the car broken, or are you just sick of it? So I guess that's a question I would need to ask to like kind of know exactly what I would do. But I would say if there's a major problem with it that you don't want to fix, or, that kind of thing, I think you need to kind of come up with some sort of special send off for this car. Kind of honor it. You've had it for 10 years. Try to find a fun way to kind of send it off. If it's going to the crusher, bake a little cake for your car or something.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, cake.
I don't know, but if it's still running, kind of like put it in the Gambler 500 or something. Do something crazy with it.
That's one way to think about it.
Yeah,
yeah. I think if there's like a strong sentimental connection to something like that, it's going to be very difficult to say goodbye if that's what you do. But maybe you don't. If the space permits, hang on to it, and you never know. Maybe one day there might be an ability to resurrect it.
Sure.
I'm a good example of it. I've got that Volkswagen Beetle that's been sitting.
You'll get to it someday.
I'll get to it someday. It's got a lot of sentimental value. I mean, it's been, my family's owned it since it was brand new, rolling off the line at the Wolfsburg factory. So there's that. But if space isn't permitted and you can't, and then if that's truly what time it is to do, then that's the time to send it off. Take a memento, take the shift knob off it and keep it.
Sure. That's a good idea.
And donate it to the car gods, and off she goes. You will cry. You will cry. Yes. I'm just saying that right now.
I don't know if I've ever cried over a car. I'm trying to think about it.
I did. Of course I did.
Nope. So we have a couple more questions before we call it a day. So Trano73 on Twitter, the one question we got on Twitter, people are still on Twitter. What do you think makes a car model loved and admired by groups of people, and other models regarded as an appliance? So I don't really know, but I was thinking that just at a basic level, enthusiasts need to find something to like about it. So if there's no enthusiasts that can find anything about the car to like, then it's just going to be viewed as an appliance. It needs to be something that it's either slightly fun to drive, or it's got some unique characteristics that people who are just into cars like. Otherwise, if it's just people are buying it to get to work, there's no other reason. Beige Camry, it's just going to be viewed as an appliance. But I will say this: I personally like the idea of taking cars that are known as appliances and doing dumb stuff with them. For instance, the Gambler 500. So Gambler 500 is the perfect example of taking an appliance vehicle and telling it to do something it has absolutely no reason to be doing. So a Camry or a Corolla or a Tercel. I don't know why I'm stuck on Toyota, but I think of Toyotas as appliances just because they're so good. They're so good at like getting people from A to B without much fuss. I think those are perfect cars for something like the Gambler 500, just because you're taking this car that is good at everything and trying to get it to do something that it might not be good at, Right. So that is, I think the next Gambler 500 car that I get needs something like a Tercel. Plus you can get those for next to nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That makes sense. So I think any car can be made fun. Case in point.
Yeah.
My driveway.
Yeah, you can die too.
You've just got to. Every car will have its enthusiasts. I have that weird, strange obsession with first generation Priuses. Don't know why. I just like them. I mean, I like the way they look. It's just a silly thing I have. Every car will have its thing, but what makes a car shown as an appliance is just just like you said. It's the thing you see driving around every day, and this is might be a little controversial to think, but now we're seeing so many Tesla Model 3s driving around. It's almost like the new Camry.
It is. Well, especially in Los Angeles.
In where we live, like at least.
Yep. Everywhere.
Countless Model 3s. They're everywhere. Yep. They're doing exactly what he wanted to do. But sure, they can accelerate extraordinarily quickly. But I'm going to ask this question: When have you ever seen a speeding Tesla?
Speeding Tesla?
You don't see them because I think the majority of people that are driving them are afraid it's going to run out of power or run out of juice. So it's like one of those things. It's like, you're in the Tesla and you're driving. It's almost like the new Prius in a way.
Sure. Or they're just on their phone and letting the autopilot do it.
Or that too.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know. Teslas. It's funny. A couple episodes ago, I was really hot on getting a Tesla. Now, I don't know. I think the cult of personality around Elon is really kind of getting to me, and I can't do it. Plus, I've been thinking a little bit about, like the whole idea of buying an electric car, because you want to do right by the environment. You want to try to do something that you think is it's obviously not going to burn any gasoline. You're still using energy because you're on the grid or something, unless you have all solar or whatever. But still, the idea of buying a brand new car, manufacturing, all the energy that goes into manufacturing a new car, I'm really kind of over that. I think that was sort of a thing that I really didn't quite think through to the end, Given that, maybe at some point I would be interested in buying a used Tesla, possibly. But I think at this point, if you really want to help the environment, buy a vehicle that's already built. Yes. Buy a vehicle that's just already out there that somebody's disposed of, and you want to just keep going. So,
I agree with that. Even though I've bought a lot of new cars, nothing like a hybrid or anything, but that's kind of the way it's going to go from now on with me. It's like, it's something that's already out there. So the impact has already kind of been there, I guess. It's somewhat justified in my mind. So
exactly,
it works. So
and it's kind of a bummer because I desperately want to find something to replace our Prius, because it makes me so mad. So I'm just going to try to find something else just another hybrid that's got a little bit more space, I think. So we'll see. Anyway, so I think there's one more. Lewis Storm says, it's a question for me. Have you ever thought about collaborating with Tyler from Hoovie's Garage? Sure. If you'd want to, I guess that'd be kind of fun. I think the problem is I would just want to give him all my cars because I just want to get rid of most of the ones that don't work. And he seems like the person that might want to take them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did actually talk to him briefly at Radwood, LA 2 years ago, trying to convince him to take my Fifth Avenue that I had at the time, and he was not interested because I think he was sort of soured on the LeBaron. What was that? The LeBaron convertible that he buried?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's buried a few things. Didn't he just bury a Range Rover?
Yep. Yeah. So I would collaborate with him if he was interested in it, but it would probably be bad for the both of us in some way, shape, or form.
Well, I don't know. I mean, what has he done recently? He just put that lift in his house and he's got all of his cars on it. It looks so super cool, but yeah, it would be interesting. I think you would come home with a DeLorean and he would keep the Stanza wagon.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much what would happen.
That's going to be the trade-off there.
Yeah, he's going to get the raw deal, I think. Although, DeLorean, Stanza wagon, I think it's kind of a fair trade.
Or he might end up with his Rolls Royce or whatever
No, it's not interested. Not interesting to me. Out of his, I don't even know what he still has in his fleet, but
it's hard to keep up.
I have no idea. Yeah, I'm not sure. But he can have the Stanza wagon. That's fine. I'll pretty much give that card away to anybody at this point. If you want that, just let me know. Bring it over. Tow it over.
There you go.
So
cool.
Wow. Q&A episode number 2. That was fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. We got to do these again.
We will.
We had enough questions to fill 2 episodes with Q&A. That's pretty impressive.
That's very, very impressive. So that's awesome. We will definitely do this again. Maybe we can come up with like some sort of a schedule, like maybe every 2 or 3 episodes.
Sure.
Q&A time, just to kind of let everybody think of what burning questions they want to ask.
Sure.
The Hello Road podcast.
Sure. We'll slowly figure out what all the professional podcasts do and try to emulate them. Yeah. Or no, we won't do that. We're just going to keep doing our thing. Yeah. But yeah, let's do more Q&A episodes. That was a good time. So thanks everybody for for taking the time to come up with some unique questions and some fun questions and allowing us to answer them slightly inebriated. So I guess that might be it for today. What do you think, Paul?
I think that's going to be it.
So on the interwebs, on the things called the social medias, where can everybody find you, Paul?
You can find me at Paul's Finest Hour on both Twitter, if you want to be tweeting, and on Instagram, if you want to be gramming.
Nice. YouTube channel for me is youtube.com/HelloRoad. And also on Instagram and Twitter at Mr. Ethan Tufts. So I guess that's probably it. I think my beer is gone.
Yep.
Got through all the questions. So that's probably all we have for today.
There we go.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.